and how I've survived in having to maintain this life that I have over being an artist was mainly having to understand that my artworks in itself are a part of my own commodity. Hi, my name is Khune. I'm a textile designer and fine artist. I'm from Pretoria, Mabopane. I was born in Mabopane. And then I lived with my grandparents the most of my time in Garankuwa. So I studied textile design, and within that, I kind of took it kind of took me to a very a very historic place, you know. When I decided that I want to do textiles, because you know I had to choose either fine art or textile. So with textile, it was not necessarily an easy choice, but it was a no-brainer. Because I grew up having to see my grandmother sew some stuff, you know, at home. My great grandmother used to do plastic mats. So there was a kind of a thing that I saw every day. It was an original. It was, you know, familiar to the eye, and also the process. It was kind of familiar. So yeah, what I remember as a young kid was when my grandmother actually made a hat for me, a leather hat, from pieces of material that were used for upholstery. It was kind of very special to me because it was made for my birthday, you know. And then from that, it was kind of a thing that it translated into my work as well, using discarded fabric. The way I identify with using discarded fabrics in my work, and how it explains with the whole self-identity, and you know, trying to document those parts of my life, you know, of being and becoming. Um, it's for one something that I took from home, and something that's a norm. Like I said, you know, having to see my grandmother sew from discarded fabric, and then having to use discarded fabric and denim into my work. Um, that's number one. And number two, you know, when I was still in university, there was a time I remember when I was late for the bus, but I continued to make this bag because I didn't want the bag that was, you know, of like everyday bag. I made it from my own pants, my own jean pants, and then that's how it started as a thing of, oh, I could actually use these jeans that I have, you know, and actually make stuff from that. And then as I started doing these portraits, you know, I ran out of material at some point, and then what's the next best thing that I thought of? Like, you know, reusing material, reusing fabric, and I just needed to know how to, you know, use it properly, like in terms of collaging, and because it's a very confusing thing to start off with fabric, because fabric behaves differently as a medium than paint or charcoal, you know. So I had to find, and within those journeys, I had to find a way where it can translate into myself and who I am physically, as you know, as how I create these portraits which resemble me, and also as a medium to hold and to preserve in the work, and then it lasts long as well too, you know. So in this series that I was working on, it was well, about relief, in a sense of having to find yourself and finding relief and finding yourself. So I use these denim fabric and materials to sort of make relief portraits. Relief portraits are like more like you're molding out of like 2D paper on canvas paper. So it was kind of like a testimony to having to relieve myself. So that specific artwork in itself, um, translates a lot of about, having to know yourself, having to put these pieces together and sort of like saying, these are the pieces that make me who I am and these experiences. And then having to know those would actually, I'd know more about myself than having to know more about, someone else, in terms of wanting to know me or defining me. So I rather having these pieces define me, and knowing these pieces that are me, I know more about myself. I know more about those pieces than any other piece that, have been used any other way or everywhere else. Yeah. Being an artist, being an artist is a very challenging, uh, like career or lifestyle, and how I've survived in having to maintain this life that I have over being an artist was mainly having to understand that my artworks in itself are a part of my own commodity. I'm putting in time in a product or an artwork, where this artwork needs to take me somewhere, or it reveals something into my life. So with time, I've learned that being an artist mostly is about being a messenger, and then having to tell these stories that I tell within the portraits, says a lot about the experience that I've had as being an artist. So it kind of interplays with each other. These things, like all these trials and errors, all these achievements, the wins that I get, all the losses that I've had, like they all kind of put me in a place where or a narrative that I can say, like this can work, this can't work, or something that's not really well defined too. It's part of life. I can't necessarily say I have it all figured out. So as everything else with life, I can't say I figured out everything, but what I've figured out mostly is how this commodity and artwork can make me live another day tomorrow. And first is speaking about these things and the stories, like having to belong. That's what as people, what people do. We are here to wanting to say something to show that we belong to a certain either group or as to yourself, your unique way. And secondly, having to know that every time I sell something, like it's not necessarily like a great time, but also having to think that I need to buy materials. I need to I need to have nice tools for my studio to make my work even better, to execute better. I need to also understand that the time that I put in, it's not necessarily only the time in studio that you need to know. You need to know. I've recently learned dreaming is very important too. Like the reason why you're doing this, like it's not necessarily you get it when you're working, you're toiling away, but also resting and allowing yourself to dream again, and aligning those memories of why exactly am I being motivated or inspired to do this. Those are the things that I've come to notice. And also your environment really influences the process in itself. Like when I was here in town and was living in the city, I didn't get to see the differences of how the environment changed my work. But now that I've moved a couple of times and been to other areas in like around, um, I see that like people too are also a very inspiring thing. Having to belong in a certain community and having to adapt and actually grasp these things that make people people. There's people live differently everywhere. And having to see how that the differences, the unique differences, like the culture shocks that are there. Those are very important in documenting and bulking up what you see and what you can talk about. And I've had fun in actually taking these things and funnel them towards who I am or what it makes me who I am, and actually presenting them into my artworks. And it's not just artworks in itself. Like talking about art itself is a very important integral part in actually allowing art to happen. It's giving back to the art industry, your art industry, or art circle that you are in, and own your story kind of a thing. Because it's not just with one artwork. Many artworks validate what you're trying to say, your message every day.